Uh, we will begin the events in a few moments. We would like to ask all of our guests to please be seated. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. My name is Ryuan, MArch 18 graduate, and I'm currently running a firm called One After, and I'm serving as one of the board members for Columbia Gsapp Korean Alumni Association, and I'll be moderating tonight's event. 안녕하세요. 오늘 Gsapp 이벤트의 사회를 맡게 된 안미륵 소장입니다. 저는 MArch 18년도에 졸업하고 현재 One After라는 건축사무소를 운영하고 있습니다. 반갑습니다. Before we begin, first I'd like to thank Dean Andres Hake and Leah for visiting Seoul again and helping to host this event. We are deeply grateful for your support. And I'd also like to thank Haenglim Architects, One, Jaemin, and other staff members, their hard work in sponsoring and organizing tonight's event. Your efforts have made this possible and we truly appreciate it. 먼저 오늘 먼 길을 와주신 딘 안드레스 하케와 리아에게 감사의 말씀을 전하고 싶습니다. 그리고 이 이벤트가 가능하게 준비해 주시고 장소를 제공해 주신 행림 건축의 이원재 대표이사님과 김재민 실장님 그리고 많은 다른 스태프분들께 감사의 인사를 전합니다. Tonight we have the pleasure to hosting both Columbia Gsapp alumni and prospective students. This event serves as a bridge between those who have walked the path through Gsapp and those who have considering embarking on it. We hope tonight provides valuable insights and inspiration for both groups. 오늘 이벤트는 콜롬비아 Gsapp 동문회뿐만 아니라 콜롬비아 예비 지원자분들을 위한 자리입니다. 오늘 이 자리를 통해서 많은 분들이 배우고 교류하는 시간이 되었으면 합니다. Now let me introduce Gsapp. Now let me introduce Gsapp, the Korean Alumni Association of Columbia Gsapp. This network was created to foster connections among Korean graduates of Gsapp, sharing experiences, knowledge, and opportunities across the field of architecture and beyond. Over the past year, Gsapp has been involved in various activities from organizing lectures and mentorship events to supporting new graduates and current students. Our mission is to strengthen the ties within our alumni community and give back to the next generation of architects. Let me share some of the highlights from last year and this year. We hosted a joint end of the year party for alumni from all programs, including RED. It was one of the largest gatherings we've ever had, and I had the pleasure of meeting many wonderful people from across different programs. And this is some of the photos from the after party. And we held an open house in NYC for Gsapp alumni and current students, where we had the opportunity to visit Studio Daniel Libeskin's office. Our Gsapp golf club has been especially active and is currently one of our most engaged groups. We also hosted a lecture by UN Studio, followed by one of our signature after party events. We organized a special event for newly admitted students, welcoming them into our community. And this is when Dean Andres Hake visited earlier this year. And here's the list of current directors and officers of Gsapp. And each member has been working to ensure that this association remains active and vibrant. And at this point, I'd like to invite Won-jae Lee, who serves as the vice president of the association, to deliver some welcoming remarks and introduce Dean Andres Hake.
Thank you for introduction, Mr. Yu, and I really welcome you guys being here for today's event, and I really appreciate all the staff members who helping us out for this event. And as Ryu mentioned, we preparing this event for a bit for about like 2 or 3 weeks, and I guess only for giving a really nice introduction about the Gsapp. And today we have very important VIP member from Columbia University, which is Andrew Hawkins and Leah and Stefan. And really think that this is going to be really helpful for those who are trying to apply Columbia maybe this year or later on. And we will try to respond as much we can. That if whatever the question that you have, and we'll respond it for you, and try to do our best. And so, after done with the Hake's Andres presentation, we're gonna have a Q&A session. So if you have any question, that just throw out some question for us, and we'll be very happy about it. Yeah. So I'm also Gsapp alumni and AUD 18th, and I did an urban design major, and I really appreciate that the fact that school gave us a lot of opportunity to have like this nice community. Also, even though you didn't go to school yet, or maybe in the future you might end up going school, and I definitely feel that the Columbia, as a Columbia alumni, will be really helpful for your future career. So I really encourage you guys to apply soon and have a really nice result, I guess. And okay, so now I'm gonna introduce Mr. Andrew Hake. He's currently a dean of Columbia University Architecture School, and he's actively practicing his own studio as well. And with Andres and Stefan and Leah, will help you out to today Q&A session as well. So please make a big sound for Andrew to have a nice presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Will. Well, thank you very much, Juan. We're very honored to be here with you. Juan is a very distinguished graduate from our school. We're very proud of the success and the leadership that you're having, not only here in Seoul, but beyond even Korea. And the work that the office is doing is impressive. And we're very excited to be here with all of you, and be also in connection with Juan and the network of alumni that are many of you here, and many that will become part of this network soon. And Rio, thank you very much for your introduction. I want to say that Gsapp is a very living organism. Like, we're unstoppable. And we say this because basically Gsapp is the school that is anticipating the future. And that means that basically we're not just looking backwards, but we're really thinking, what is the next step for humanity? What is the way that our cities, our territories, our architecture, it's going to be operating, and we invent that. So those that are sort of conservative, thinking that, or nostalgic, don't come to Gsapp. This is a place where basically we're inventing the future and anticipating it. And that's something that you see with our alumni. The places like this office and many others across the world are committed to this mission. It's not places where they're just replicating what already exists. If you've been around the office, you've seen what I mean. And that's why we think that we are unstoppable. We never stop. Each day is different. And we keep having this kind of demand of being the leaders of the future. And that means that we keep putting efforts in thinking what is the next steps of humanity, and that's what we do through our programs, our research, our publications, our exhibitions, our networks, and that's what we do. We're here in Colombia. This is our law library, this very open space that is open to the city, and that is actually the first urban campus around the world, a campus that is not closed, that is actually part of New York. And we are part of New York because we actually produce New York. A big part of, basically, Columbia was brought here by law, the president that claimed that Columbia would be one with the city. And for us, this is crucial because we think that Gsapp is New York. And we are not just there and kind of reflecting or receiving what New York is doing. We actually, our faculty are the ones that are doing New York what it is. And that's what is very important. We're standing on this library, which is the most important architectural library in the world. They are actually the library of reference, Avery Library, and this is something that all the alumni know well. Everyone is spent so many hours here doing research and kind of spending time looking at amazing publication plans. But for those that are coming, you will see that this is a great resource for you to invent new things by looking at the whole ecosystem of things that happen at Gsapp. But Gsapp is a very dense ecosystem. There's so much going on, and you will find that the studios, the labs, the auditoriums, everything's ready for you to basically develop a career that is based on your own ideas, on your own inclinations. These are the studios that are really organized so that you can basically pursue your own sensitivities and your own engagements, and that's what all these people do all the time. So when you come here, you can talk to those that are already graduates from the programs. You will see that there's an intensity that is difficult to match elsewhere. And all this in a building that contains the knowledge of architecture. This is what Gsapp looked back in the days, and this is when it was started. This is a photograph actually from the beginning of the 20th century, but this is what Gsapp looks like now. So we have 700 students. We have something like, it depends of the semester, but we have something like 200 faculty members. We have researchers, fellows. We have people that are, all sort of generations, from Kenneth Frampton, Bernard Schumit, to super young people like Mireia Luzárraga are teaching at Gsapp. We make sure that we bring all the talent in the world, people that are in the front page of Times, among the most important people in the world, like Kate Orff, our director of the UD program, where from which one graduated, to people like, I don't know, Stephen Hall, or here a sample that are basically, if you go to the library, you will see that their work is everywhere there. But what is very important is that we really work together. So this is a moment in which we meet with all the different programs and we discuss important issues, and everyone presents their work, and that's something that we do all the time. So the life in Gsapp is very intense. Even the staircases become opportunities to have meetings and conversations and discussions. And this is kind of the way we work. We always work in groups. We always work kind of discussing what everyone's doing. Nothing is kind of hidden. Nothing is isolated. And that's what we do also when we come here. So moments like these are always moments of discussion, of conversation. That's what we do also across the world. And I want to say that for us, the alumni network is what makes Gsapp strong. We have how many? 15,000 or 15,000 alumni, right? So it's a huge network. Once you're part of Columbia, you're part of Columbia forever. And that means that we keep basically meeting with you. You find a home in New York, in Columbia. You work with the networks that you build at the time that you're there, and you keep expanding those networks. And that's actually a value. So being part of Columbia is being part of Columbia forever. But we also have three things that make us very special, and that it's difficult to find elsewhere. The first is that we really work radically in an interdisciplinary way. So radical interdisciplinarity is very important for us. The second is that we really make sure that we are inventing things, but we also make sure that those inventions are integrated. They're not just kind of isolated speculations, but rather we want to reinvent cities and to transform them, and territories and housing and everything. And the third is that we make sure that we attract all the global talent. And you can see that if you just look at our faculty, but also our graduates. So radical interdisciplinarity is now growing through a new format that we invented a couple of years ago, that are the clinics. The clinics are very unique studios that are basically doing a few things. First, they're addressing questions that are not easy to resolve. We're not doing easy things. We're making very difficult, we're committing to address very difficult questions, and I will show you some of those later. The second thing is that these questions that we want to address through our disciplines require the cooperation between different disciplines, from architecture to urban design to planning to real estate development to computational tools like the ones that are used in the computational design practices, all these coming together to address questions that are incredibly difficult. And the third one is that we're specific. So when people from real estate come to work here, they come with their financial knowledge, with their knowledge on development. When planners come here, they come with their capacity to regulate and to do policy. And architects, when they come, or urban designers, come with their capacity to design and to invent situations that others cannot invent. So each one participates with a very specific knowledge. 4 is that we don't work in exercises. Nothing in Gsapp is an exercise. We work with real cases, with the stakeholders. We basically work with those that are in the need of action, like the one that we produce. And for instance, and that means that instead of working, we work with instead of working for. So you will see that that means many things. That basically discourse, practice, and in a way activism are inseparable. So basically we use design, regulation, planning, development as an opportunity to change the world. And I was now talking to some of you, that alumni that are working on housing schemes, affordable housing in places like Cambodia and Philippines, and they were telling me that there was a need for that, and this need for that means that activism and design and development come together, and that's what we do. To the extent that, for instance, our students and faculty and researchers have been working to change the way the city of Vienna deals with disabilities. And that's a very real case that is being developed by our faculty and students. Or for instance, the way that the office buildings can be transformed into housing schemes. Or for instance, something that we will be in 2 weeks, the Prime Minister of Tuvalu, this Pacific island that is one of the first that is going to disappear through sea level rise. We've been working with them, with the Prime Minister and his government, to design the transitioning from an island that is containing a state to a state that will have to be nomadically dispersed across the world. And what is the way that that can be designed and developed? This huge problem of taking a state that is containing an island that will disappear and moving it to other parts of the world and keep the societies connected and cooperating in the sense of state and the regulation of the state operating is a huge problem that no one knows how to resolve or how to address. And that's what we're doing. And we're basically doing it with the people of Tuvalu. And it's, if you are in Gsapp, it's not unusual to find prime ministers, mayors, very important people with big problems in our corridors that are coming really to work with us. That happens every day. I mean, there was last year there was a moment that we had 3 mayors, in the mayor of Bogota, the mayor of Cartagena, and the mayor of Cali in our building, and then they cross the others. So basically, that's the way we work. We really work as a global entity that is addressing the questions that no one else can address. And we have, for instance, here Espaliat, the congressman, that at the time that we were working on a huge project to transform Bronx. And so that's the way that we work. We work from the street to our studios to really working with the people that are designing the future of the world. This is how basically we do things. And this is something that makes us also be very, very willing and equipped to use advanced tools. Gsapp has been the place where digital architecture was invented. I mean, this is kind of a funny photographs now from the 1980s, where the first IBM computers were installed in the School of Architecture to use Maya, and where parametricism was invented in the paperless studios at the time that Bernard Schmidt was the dean. Or for instance, this is the $1 million block, the first time that data was used for urban analytics and describe inequality through data and situating it in particular blocks in New York City. And that was again happening through the Center for Spatial Research at Gsapp. So we have these milestones that allowed us to claim that we're the place where computation and other tools have been introduced for architecture, urban design, planning across the world. And now this is of course growing, and it's become a platform that we call the computational glue That means that Gsapp is actually using advanced tools of data analysis, urban analytics, architectural digitalization to mobilize massive amounts of data to work in our disciplines and to not only, let's say, visualize things, but also transform them and to also create credibility and evidence that allowed for this is a massive work that we've done now under the direction of Laura Kurgan. I mean, I could go on each of these projects forever, but this is not something that is confined in one program. It's the entire Gsapp. Either you come for real estate or for architecture, either the AAD or the MR program or urban design, you will be basically having access to the computation glue, we call it, because it's what brings the entire school together. And this means basically that we have an ecosystem of courses and workshops on computational techniques and tools that can be taken by each student can basically decide what courses on this large ecosystem are taken. So the amount of courses on AI or whatever you want to think, or even animation or many things, or gaming that you can take is unmatchable by any other school. We also make sure that we are addressing the key questions of our times. And we do that through many formats. One of them, for instance, is this action and summits. We basically bring the most important people of the world to work together to define key questions of our times. For instance, this is a moment a few days ago that we were discussing through this summit what it means to work collectively, what it means to work basically enrolling communities. And we brought historical people like Alejandro Echeverri, who was the leader of the projects of transformation of Medellin in the 2000s, with leaders now from places like Brooklyn or from Southeast Asia, from Los Angeles, to discuss basically what are the specific tools and methodologies that work when you want to work collectively. And these are the kind of dynamics that we create all the time, and every student work on this, how to speed up response to urgent crisis. For instance, is the next one that we'll have next week. Again, with people like Ada Colau, the former mayor of Barcelona, who was a milestone in accelerating change and housing development, to Carles Bañez, the architect Renato Timbalista, that invented in Brazil a new form of real estate that basically allowed very rapidly for people with no resources to get a home, to Marika Williams, we can go on, or for instance, how to connect local AI with global knowledge, how to scale up action, how to move from basically the invention of a brick to transform a city, how to think through as more than human intelligence, how do we basically work in a way that plants, animals, bacteria, algae, and humans can create a form of coexistence that is mutually beneficial for all the different species, how to bring science, spirituality, and politics together, how to do projects for the other project, how to project disability forward, how to basically design for alternative forms of bodies and minds, how to repair, and that's the way that we're working. But for us, what is key is that we're incredibly inventive. We have the labs that are probably most advanced, but we don't want to just invent things. We want to make sure that we do all the journey from invention to impact, to transform the environment. For instance, the housing lab, which has this team, and those that can join the team, it's very open to everyone. It's been doing a lot of work in analyzing how real estate for housing works in New York City, and end up with very important recommendations of how to intervene it so there's a gradient of prices and affordabilities within a city that is one of the most expensive in the world, as you know. But that actually immediately moved to action. And actually the action comes in collaboration with Governor Hochul. And now our Gsapp lab is actually informing how to introduce density in suburban areas in New York City that allows them to reduce the prices and have affordable housing within a city that is incredibly expensive. Or for instance, the Center for Spatial Research that has been doing this kind of work, for instance, understanding what is the effect of satellites on the ground. Oh, I don't know why it's not moving, but but basically analyzing how we can work across scales and connect the scale of a district and a block with the scale of the planet, and we can go on and on with this. Or for instance, materiality, and these are some of the materials that we're patenting every year at Gsapp. Many of these materials are produced, for instance, with, for instance, these fabrics. Now they're very thin. This is already obsolete, but we're doing all this in our school, in our labs, in our facilities, and we're inventing materials that use, for instance, animal protein, for instance, the saliva of particular fish mixed with mud and with natural fibers like hemp. And then we can, at this point, we're very close to produce materials that have a very similar strength and loading capacity that still, but materials that have no environmental impact, that are not toxic, that can be actually eaten in breath and are not damaging our health, that can be produced with local materials that can be found and grown anywhere, that could then therefore empower communities, and also that have no waste, and where structure, cladding, and thermal isolation and finishing are the same thing. So this is a very important thing, but again, we make sure that this goes to all the way to become really materials that can be used in fashion or that can be used in construction, and that's why we do the effort of patenting them, introducing them. And of course, this is all something that we keep testing, and we prototype, and that's what we do. So all the time we have basically constructions going on. These are things that we have these days planning to build up. Global talent, this is crucial. We're in New York, but New York is an open city, a city that has all the cultures. The most multicultural places in the world are in New York City, and we're one of them. And that means that we're basically doing huge efforts to attract all the talent of the world. And that means that basically the top architects are graduates from Gsapp, but are coming from all around the world, like Minsuk, that is a graduate from Gsapp and did this year the Serpentine Pavilion. So this basically is how we see it. The talent of the world is channeled to Gsapp and Columbia, and we support it. And many of them go back to the places where they came from. Other people stay in New York, because of course we help people to stay in New York if they want to, or for a few years, wherever they want. And then we basically, we see how our graduates are changing the world and succeeding wherever they go. And this is something, of course, that we do from the very beginning. So basically, our school is a place that is a cauldron of talent. That happens among the faculty, but also the students. And this talent is very much something that we translate into curriculum. So we have a very complex ecosystem of programs. Two programs in architecture, the EMARC and the AD, one post-professional, one for people that don't have a previous degree, urban design, we have real estate, historic preservation, we have urban planning, and then we have many alliances with other schools and dual degrees, so the combinations that you can do with this is huge. We have the huge advantage that Columbia is a very broad and competitive university that allows our students to take courses in other schools and also have dual degrees with the climate school or the business school or the School of Law or SIPA, the Sciences Po, our Sciences Po, School of Political Sciences, and Public Health. And that's basically what makes Gsapp so unique, that is a place where you can define your own trajectory, and we make sure that that's supported. So this brings us back to Avery Hall, where our library is, where all our studios are, where all these things happen. And it's all ready for you to come, and for the alumni, it's, as you very well know, your home for life. Thank you very much, and I think now we have Juan, and Rio, and Leah Cohen, and Stephen Bodeker to respond questions, and with many, many friends here that can also be responded. Thank you very much.
Thank you for a wonderful talk. It brings me back a lot of memories from Gsapp. Why don't you guys actually take a seat in the front, and we can start the Q&A session. 제가 Okay, now we're gonna move on to the most important parts of the event tonight. The Q&A session. Sorry about that. Q&A session for our prospective students. We've actually gathered some questions in advance through the survey, and we'll begin by asking a few questions to Stefan from admissions and also Dean Andres Hake. But please don't hesitate to ask any other questions if you have or anything that comes to your mind. First and foremost, is there tips to preparing portfolio?
Reviewed so many applications. First of all, thank you all for coming. It's great to see so many of you here. Can I just get a quick raise of hands of prospective students in the room, just to have an idea? I know you have different color tags, but excellent. Well, welcome. It's nice of you to come and join us. Preparing a portfolio, I think what I usually say is don't worry too much about what we might expect, and think more about how you want to present yourself. Right, this applies not just to the portfolio, but to the whole application. We say we have application requirements, but really the way you should maybe think of it is application opportunities, because what we're looking for is individuals, and there is no cookie cutter. There's no formula that you should try to copy that we might appreciate. We're really always looking for a sort of individual talent, individual creativity. You know, the school that you saw the dean describe is very diverse, diverse in terms of ideas and backgrounds and experiences and ambitions also. Students come from all different places and backgrounds and want to also pursue all different types of things. So the portfolio, just like your statement and other parts of the application, I would say put your best work that you're most excited about, right? The things that really reflect what you care about and that will communicate to us who you are, how you work, how you think, and how that could be interesting, right? For us to bring someone of your talent and interests and skills to the school.
The second question is that Dean already addressed in the presentation, but can you talk more about the dual degree options? And also, it's a two-part question, information about the scholarships and financial aid opportunities.
So one quick technical thing about the dual degrees, that the dean spoke a little bit about how important the interdisciplinary sort of culture and nature of the school is. But from an admissions perspective, you apply to 2 different programs. So you actually have to submit 2 applications, one for each program that you're applying to. And you can only do that if it is an existing dual degree program. So you can't apply to 2 programs unless they are a dual degree program. And regarding financial aid, the school offers different types of aid to its students. And maybe the most relevant at this stage is that we offer, with the admission, every application is reviewed for financial aid that's given based on academic merit. So during the review process for admission, the committee also considers applicants for potential scholarships. There's nothing you have to do separate, or no form you have to fill out to be considered. So at the time of admission, a certain number of scholarships are awarded, and they're specifically based on merit, so that there is no differentiation between domestic students or international students. So you're you're considered in the same way for these awards as a student from the US would be. And then once students are at the school, we also offer additional scholarships that are available by application. Some of those are need-based, so there we are considering really the financial situation of the students, and others are again merit-based and are awarded based on your academic performance at the school.
You know, Columbia Gsapp is incredibly competitive. So it means that we really want to make sure that we bring the best people, the ones that are, and what does it mean? That basically we make sure that we bring people that have a vision, that can really make the best of the resources that we mobilize. But we're very open to what that means. So something that I would tell all of you is, don't hesitate to apply. What we might consider an amazing application in other places might be rejected, you know, and for us, we have different criteria. We're not trying to find standard students. We're trying to see beyond the standards and looking what's the potential of each one. And that often means that people never found the right place until they come to Gsapp, that they never found a place where they could be understood and listened and be given the opportunity to do something different. And that means that often we bring students that are rejected in other schools, and we accept them, and we actually put them in on top of the stack, you know, stack. And for us, then we see, because we have the experience, that often those are the best students. The students that basically have a different way of doing things or seeing things. They're annoyed by things that happen in our professions, and they're willing to do something different. And they find in Gsapp the place where they can flourish, where they can really get the best of their annoyment. And I remember Minsuk said once in a conversation, a public conversation, said, the reason why I went to Gsapp is that I was very annoyed by architecture. I didn't like the way architecture happened. I was very annoyed with everything in my life. And I went there because I wanted the change. And then he became a very big architect, as you know, all know. So I think this is key when you're thinking what you are putting in your application. Tell us really what your concerns are, what is unique about your way of thinking, even if risky. Show us parts of your work that maybe other people don't appreciate, but we will carefully look at that. Be assured that a number of people, it depends, but at least 3 or 4 people will be reading your applications, and they will be reading everything. They will be looking in detail everything that you put there. And it's very clever people, and people that are not conventional. They're not going to basically miss any important thing that you put there. And that means that we will look through and we see what's the potential of your ideas, not to do something that we already know, but to do something that is needed and is different. And that makes a big difference. The same with financial aid. There's many ways of addressing that, so don't be scared to ask, to send us emails, to tell us what is your questions, your concerns, and we make our best to help and to support. But this is my advice: apply. If you think this is your place, apply, and it's very likely that it works.
Great. That was an answer to our next question. I think those are very crucial points. What Gsapp's looking for in like the qualities and characteristics that Gsapp is expecting from the candidates. So take notes. I guess one other question is, how much does the admission committee value the candidate's past experience? That was one of the questions.
Pass the mic. I think that's also in a way answered, right? There's no one answer to this in the sense that we're not going to say the ideal student has 2 years of professional experience, right? We have some successful applicants who have 2 years of experience, but we also have many successful applicants who come straight out of undergraduate. There is no one answer. That sort of is what I sort of started with by saying it's very diverse, and it's diverse in every way, right? Like there are some students who are in their 40s, there are some students who are straight out of their undergraduate program, and it really, as the dean said, you know, there's no one standard application that's guaranteed success. The admitted students have very different applications. The portfolios look very different, right? The resumes look very different from one another. And so this is not a satisfactory answer maybe for you, or maybe it really is. It really is more a question of, do you want to pursue graduate school now? Then you should apply, right? And if you feel like you're ready to start, then you should apply. I think that's the best way probably to answer that. I should stand next to you.
I mean, the next questions are going to be a little different. So I guess this question goes to Juan also. What is the best part about being in Gsapp community, and what do you think is a unique characteristic of Gsapp compared to other schools? I mean, Dean Hawk already elaborated a lot on that.
I mean, like, really big thing about being as the alumni as a Gsapp member, I think you see right now, like any other schools doing these events for prospective student, right? So I guess Dean is here, and the relationship department of the director is here, and administrator here. So I guess we are very, I think as a alumni, Columbia Gsapp is very positive and very enthusiastic about like having a really great school. So I think that's a big thing. And then also, as you see, we have a lot of alumni. It's a really strong alumni community in Korea. So I guess you cannot compare any other alumni in Korea so far, I guess. So that's, I think, really big thing that we have as a Columbia alumni.
Yeah, and I think we have to say it's the leading school in the world. So when we look at the rankings, and we're number 1, number 2, like basically every year we're among the 2 top schools, and we're the top school being innovative, being about the future, being about really invention and what's the next step. So we don't prepare people for the world of 1980s. We prepare people for the 2030, 40, 50, and beyond. And that's what makes us so special, and that's why our alumni are so successful.
Just adding a few comments. First of all, my name is Leah Cohen, and I work with the graduates of the program. So I've had the wonderful opportunity to hear the stories of so many alumni that have passed through Gsapp. And I think it's graduate school, it's a very unique and intensive time. It's different than your undergraduate experience. You have some experience, more experience. You're working very intensively with a group of people that become your family and your community, and many personal relationships, friendships, marriages, business partners, future collaborators come out of that community. And I think that intensity and special experience, and also experiencing New York City together, leads to many special and unique relationships. And then I would also add that the idea of having all the disciplines of the built environment under one school and one banner means that all your future projects could have collaborations with other Gsapp graduates. And we just see it again and again and again in the stories that we hear and the opportunities we have to visit our alumni around the world. They are lifelong partners and connections.
Great. Next question is, I guess I'm going to ask this at once. What kind of social phenomena is Gsapp focusing on? And the other person said, I'm curious about Columbia University, Gsapp's architecture discourse and direction regarding sustainable architecture in the future.
Yeah, I think this is a key question. This is a crucial question. And at this point, I think most part of the architectural field, and I would say also urban design, definitely planning, preservation, real estate to a large extent also, are adopting sustainability, thinking basically how to minimize the impact of construction and buildings, building performance, and how to reduce emissions and waste. And that's, of course, we take that for granted. So that's the kind of level zero of anything that we can do now. But we're going much farther than that. And I think that's the Gsapp part. So whereas most schools are there, for us it's much more. For instance, people like David Benjamin, that is the world expert on embodied energy, is now moving from basically minimizing the impact, the environmental impact of buildings, to actually buildings becoming actors for environmental reparation. So basically it's not that there's not polluting or not carbonizing, but it's that they actually operating as carbon sinks. And this is a huge transformation that requires a lot of work and a lot of a very different way of thinking and doing architecture. But that's happening at Gsapp, and we do that all the time now. Or for instance, we're thinking beyond the idea of ecology, something that basically is green or that incorporates wildlife and that is creating more biodiversity, to something much deeper. For instance, our natural material lab is working with a holistic way of how materiality moves from bodies to other bodies, to the air, to the water, to ecosystems, to climate, to the extent that the materials that we're producing and that we use in our buildings are materials that you can eat, that you can breathe, and that are not going to damage your body. We have published now, in the last year, at Gsapp, a massive research on how plastics are now part of our bodies. Basically, all of us have a big part of our body is composed by plastics that we either breathe or ate or basically we touch and then started to incorporate in our bodies. But what we're seeing now is that we're inventing materials that are reverting that process, and we actually invented materials that would eliminate the presence of plastics. And that's Lola Benalon and a whole lab that is working on that. Or for instance, just to give you another example, people like Mireia Luzárraga are working with more than human alliances. Rather than thinking that humans are going to sacrifice trees, animals, bacteria in the making of our environment, what we're doing now at Gsapp is to think, what is the way we construct the built environment so that all these other species get empowered, so that we basically not only cater to humans, but to all the different forms of life that constitute the possible ecosystems. And we're seeing that by doing that, for instance, the life expectancy of populations multiplies. And those are kind of, I would say that's the way that we engage with sustainability. Basically, we're expanding and multiplying. If sustainability is this for most people, for us is all this, and this is much more ambitious. And we're anticipating what other people will be doing in the future.
Thank you for your very insightful answer. 혹시 질문하고 싶으신 분 계신가요?
What I heard, I couldn't hear you perfectly well, but my understanding is that you're asking what is the way that students engage with the natural material lab, either as a studio or a seminar or, okay. This is something that you will see is very common at Gsapp. There's cauldrons of activity that are either courses or labs or centers, and that are doing many different things. One of these places is the Natural Material Lab. The Natural Material Lab is running courses that everyone at Gsapp can take. So you can take courses that are taught directly by Lola Benalon or by others, and that are using the lab as an infrastructure for those courses. The same happens, for instance, with the Historic Preservation Lab, which is a lab that has the capacity to work scientifically with materiality. It's running courses, and anyone can take those courses. Every program has electives, Gsapp electives, and at those moments you can take courses in these labs. But they're doing much more than that. These are real places where there's real research happening all the time. And you can engage with that research. First, everything's open. So you can just walk in and talk to the people at any time and being aware of what is going on there. And we have events. They organize seminars, symposiums that are open to everyone. And for instance, last year, the Natural Material Lab organized a symposium, a one-day symposium that from the morning to the evening, there were all the people that are working on innovative ways to approach materiality that could come. And so the work that they do is very open. But third, there's also working opportunities in these labs. So if you're very inclined, you can talk to the director and try to get a job there. And of course, it's not guaranteed, but basically if you are inclined, you have the knowledge, you're excited about that, there's always opportunities. And many more. In each case, it's different. There's moments that there's big projects that they need people or they need feedback. We do exhibitions, but basically everything that happens at Gsapp, it's open for people to become part of that.
Any more questions?
한국말로 질문하셔도 괜찮습니다.
Hello, my name is Haejo Choi, and I completed my master's degree in architecture last year, and I'm currently working in architecture design office, and I'm actually considering in both the Master of Science in Urban Design and Urban Planning, because I want to still maintain my focus on architecture while like thinking about the broad urban issues like social fragmentation or inequality. So I have two questions. First is like, while I understand the general differences between two courses, from your perspective, how does each program balance the design aspects with interdisciplinary understanding of urban issues? And secondly, because I have the base of the architecture in my background, which program do you think would it fit better for someone who looking to tackle this kind of city scale situations? Yeah.
I'm happy to answer. First, there's no one single way of doing this. So I would advise you to take a look to all the programs, to attend the virtual open house of all of them, to explore what is the one you feel closer to. And also, even there's personal differences that might be important for you. Each program has a different culture, a different way of operating, and so it's also where you feel most comfortable, I would say. But there are also crucial curricular differences. So for instance, I would assume that having already a master degree in architecture, the question is more about the post-professional programs, because those are programs that are basically allowing you to go to the already kind of high level of the advancement of the disciplines. And then, for instance, urban design is a unique program where collective work is nurtured. So there's one studio that works together and then in smaller groups, but also there's a very important investment in learning how to work in big teams. And there's a very unique culture that, whereas the AED, for instance, it's more, you have opportunities to work in groups, but it's normally in smaller groups. There's much more diversity in the number of studios that are offered, so it's much more creating a platform that allows for different trajectories to be accommodated. So each thing is very good, but it's slightly different. So if you're more inclined in like team working and large kind of projects that are addressed very collectively, the urban design methodology is probably most likely to be the one that you're inclined to. If you're more kind of thinking that you would like to develop your own project and find your path through an exposure to many different forms of understand contemporary architecture, that's probably mostly the AED. Now, between urban design and urban planning, there's also a huge difference. Urban design is more through design that is addressing urban questions, whereas planning is more about regulation and policy and, let's say, general anticipation of the future through planning methodologies. And so the urban design is more creating the vision and resolving it spatially, materially, socially, whereas planning is more discursive, more regulation, more abstract tools also. So those distinctions are important for you to consider. And one final thing, I would say the urban is everywhere for us. First, because we're in New York. New York is the most important laboratory of design, planning, preservation in the world. The accumulation of experiments that have happened there and that keep happening there. We were talking today to an alumni that haven't been in New York for 7 years, and the amount of experiments that we were naming, like from the pencil towers to the Hudson Yards to the invention of the High Line to the articulation now of the West Line as a technology access for the city, to the transformation of Brooklyn into a space of spatial environmental quality. You know, like you name them, there's maybe 50 radical experiments that have happened in New York in the last decade, and that makes that everything we do, it's urban, inevitably. But it's also ecological, it's planetary, it's soil-based. So we find that there's many layers of reality that are intersecting, and that intersection is what we work with. But that happens all across Gsapp. So my advice is spend some time looking at the website, the work that the students do, and make sure that you attend the virtual. If you're not in New York during the open house that we will have soon, and maybe Stefan, you can refer to that, attend the online version. But maybe you want to give some short case.
Yeah, absolutely. The open house, for example, is if you happen to be in New York in October, on the 21st of October, it's a Monday and it's a full day event. But then after that, we do live streams, special sessions for virtual open house. So each program, as the Dean mentioned, the program director with faculty and usually current students will host a Zoom session to describe the curriculum, to describe the work that students do, to describe the faculties, so I'll give some examples of courses, and then you'll get a much better sense for, you'll understand much more clearly by hearing also the faculty and students speak about their work, what the differences are that we're describing here, but it'll become much more concrete, I think, when you attend those open houses. And we have your information. We'll send you all the invitations. You can register in advance. It's also on our website already, the dates. And in addition to the open house, which are more about the curriculum by each academic program, we're also hosting every other week admissions info sessions, where we speak more sort of specifically about the application process and those things that I mentioned earlier tonight.
Those who visited today can have a direct email about the invitation.
네, 더 질문 있으신가요? 없으시면 저 마지막 질문. Okay, so the last question I have for you is maybe the most important one. What are the career opportunities that Gsapp facilitates after graduation?
I can speak to that a little bit. I think one I would say is that first of all, our alumni community is the greatest source of employment opportunity for our students, and it's one of the reasons the community is so tightly connected. We're fortunate that we have many alumni who choose to recruit almost exclusively from Gsapp. There are 3 full-time staff members in the school that work on career services and career development, and it's a multi-step process for each student. So at the start, it's really about preparing your materials and preparing your thinking and how you speak about yourself in interviews before you decide what kind of job you even want to, and then also participating in workshops to learn about how you maybe approach a job search, how you approach networking, how you think about all the different opportunities that there are, and there are many. Gsapp graduates go into many, many different types of employment. Of course, if you're studying architecture, many go in to become architects, but they, and likewise for the other programs as real estate developers and preservationists, but we also see many different types of fields that our graduates are interested in, from journalism to tech to nonprofit work, curatorial work. So it really, I think it's more about understanding your own journey, what you want to do, what you want to get out of your time in graduate school, and how we in the school and the staff can together help you shape that path, both in preparing yourself, but also leveraging the Gsapp alumni community to identify those possibilities. But there is information on the website about the under career services, so you can take a look to see a little bit about, there's some data there about the firms that hire most students, what types of job titles many of our graduates hold, where they work, and other details. So we can send that along in the follow-up as well as a reference point. I think the question is, what is a common trait or a common trait of the Gsapp student or the Gsapp graduate? And I would say independent thinker. I kind of laugh that a lot of, I meet with alumni all the time, and it's rare that I'll meet with them without some kind of questioning, in a good way, in a positive way. So I think that the school, I think, values and nurtures that independent thinker and encourages it, and that's definitely something that carries through. And I think I have met some students that come in maybe, I don't want to say shy, but maybe a little bit less sure of their own way of thinking and what they want to do. And by the time they're graduating, they've really grown into their own perspective and personality. So I think this level of independence and also appreciation for everyone's different ways of thinking is clear at the student level and at the graduate level.
Can I add something? I mean, everyone that comes to Gsapp becomes a New Yorker. So you basically become, I mean, we have good examples here, right? So you're both graduating from Gsapp, but you're also graduating from New York. And that gives you that this independent kind of free spirit and kind of really, really doing whatever you want, let's say, and thinking through that seriously. And it also comes with some energy. You know, New York is not a place where you can stop. It's everything's happening like that. And I think that's imprinted in everyone that is going through Columbia. That basically after a while you're a New Yorker, and that means that nothing stops you. That's why we think that we're unstoppable.
Okay, any more questions? Oh.
Yeah. Hello, my name is Yesaran Kim. Currently, I'm working for Seoul Housing and Community Corporation, which is building public building for representing Seoul City. So after 6 years of professional work, I realized even though I'm not part of actually designing building, but as a manager, it's important to understand the meaning of the design to actually lead the project. But as you can see, working for a government is really not easy to be creative and very conventional environment. And also, I haven't decided which way I would go after graduation, but since I'm taking just time off from work, so I have to tell my boss that was the motivation that I'm studying abroad. And personally, I have lots of reason, as I told you, that there are so many meaning. But I wish I can give you a personal idea and advice that I can add to my perspective.
Well, I think it relates to what Leah was saying before. It's true that it's difficult to work through public agencies, right? They're very rigid often, and often it's needed because they have to be very accountable, right? Like holding themselves very accountable, so the procedures need to be consistent, and there's a difficulty of kind of changing the way things are done, right? But I must say that if we look at our network of graduates, many of them are occupying very important positions in public administrations. We have many mayors from around the world, many people that are doing very important work at a very high level in public administrations. And I think the secret is that when you have a vision, everything becomes a little bit more easy. It doesn't mean that you're avoiding difficulties, but you have the energy and sort of the patience and the skills to navigate that. Second is that you have the contacts. So it's very difficult to do things alone, but it's much easier if you have colleagues that you can call if you have a problem and can help you and advise you, and people that have been through the same difficulty can help you. And I think the third thing is that you know that you can basically take risk. You know, you're prepared, you're equipped to do other things, to change your trajectory. You're empowered to do that because you have a very good position in the job market or in the... These three things are crucial, and that's something that is basically going through a place like Columbia Gsapp helps you gain them. I would say that our school is a place where you're permanently networking, you're connecting to others, you're gaining that kind of community that supports you. Two is a place where you're thinking how to, let's say, change things and also change your trajectory if needed. Like you really know how to navigate complexity. And the third, I would say, is a school of leadership. And by that I mean that when I started kind of making a joke that if you want to be conservative, if you want to be an architect of the 1960s, don't come to Gsapp, because what we're doing is really support people so that they can become crucial players in addressing contemporary difficulties and questions and succeeding on doing that. And we've done that for a long time. Our graduates succeed in being innovative. So it's not that we're basically claiming, oh, we're going to do crazy things. We're not doing that. we're saying we're taking very seriously what it means to innovate to the extent that we prepare our graduates to succeed. And that's what is crucial here. And that means that you are equipped with vision, with the capacity to create a vision, to explain what is what is the advantage of what you're proposing, to explain, for instance, why housing is so important, why inequality needs to be addressed, what is the advantage of a society that is providing integration or parity, and what is the way that everyone gets benefited from that. And those are the kind of arguments and capacities that build your leadership. And that's what we do all the time. So when Leah was saying that our graduates are distinguished by being kind of very independent and people that are very confident in thinking through their own ideas, it means that they're ready to defend them, to support them. And that works. When you have the capacity to argue for your ideas, then you convince others. And you help others also to support you. And that's what happens with us. I think that that's the key. And that's why we have many people that have that have key positions around the world. I mean, the number of leaders of companies, people that are leading companies like we see here, or mayors or deans in schools of architecture across the world, or people that innovated and transformed everything. And I mean, from, you name it, from big architects that have done amazing contributions to design, to people that are in public agencies, or to Gsapp is basically supported by the success of their alumni.
Okay, that concludes our event tonight, and I'd like to give a round of applause to Dean Hake, Leah, and Stefan for giving their times. 그리고 오늘 한 세션은 그 행림 유튜브에 가시면은 다시 볼 수 있습니다. 그리고 가시기 전에 그룹 포토를 하나 찍을까요? 네. Should we take a group photo, if you don't mind? Yeah, perfect. 그리고 뒤에 저희 그 콜롬비아에서 준비한 기념품하고 행림에서 준비한 기념품이 있는데요. 가실 때 챙겨가시면 됩니다. 네. 감사합니다.